In this module, we're talking about the risk management framework, steps, and structures. So let's jump into the slide deck. In this module, we'll discuss the risk management framework, steps, and structure. There are 7 steps in the RMF version 2. These are the prepare step, the categorize step, the select step, the implement step, the assess step, the authorize step, and the monitor step. In the prepare step, we prepare to execute the RMF from an organization and a system level perspective by establishing a context and priorities for managing security and privacy risk. The categorize step, in this step, we categorize the system and the information processed, stored, and transmitted by the system based on an analysis of the impact of loss of the information or information system components. In the select step, we select an initial set of controls for the system and tailor the controls as needed to reduce risk to an acceptable level based on an assessment of risk. The next step is the implement step. And in the implement step, we implement the controls and describe how the controls are employed within the system and in the environment of operation. This is when we take the controls that are listed from the previous steps and we actually build them into the system. And it's important that the system owner or somebody working for the system owner actually tests these controls to make sure that they're functioning as they're supposed to be functioning and they're providing the desired output. That way, when we get to the assessment step and it's checked by the independent assessor, we have confidence that these controls will pass that assessment. In the assess step, we assess the controls to determine if the controls are In the assess step, we assess the controls to determine if the controls are implemented correctly, operating as intended, and producing the desired outcomes with respect to satisfying the security and privacy requirements. The authorize step, this is where we authorize the system or common controls based on a determination that the risk to the organizational operations and assets, individuals, other organizations, and the nation is acceptable. In the monitor step, we monitor the system and associated controls on an ongoing basis to include assessing the controls' effectiveness, documenting changes to the system environment and operation, conduct risk assessments and impact analysis, and report the security and privacy posture of the system. The monitor step is also where we decommission the system once its useful life cycle has been expired. This slide gives a traditional view of how risk. This slide gives a traditional NIST-based view of how the RMF process works. Thanks, Piper. This slide is the NIST traditional view of how the risk management process in version 2 looks. In this graphic, you can see the prepare step is in the center of a cyclic activity where categorize is on the top, followed by select, implement, assess, authorize, monitor in a cyclic fashion. I think this is a good view of it, but I actually see it more like this, where the preparation at the organizational level happens before any system starts the SDLC. So I see the first half of prepare, that prepare step, being conducted and completed before any system starts their RMF process. Then we go into system prepare, categorize, select, implement, assess, authorize, and monitor in the normal cyclic fashion. I think the organizational preparation has to take place and be completed before any system can start the RMF process. The steps in the RMF are generally sequential. All the steps after prepare can be completed in a non-sequential order. However, it's designed to be completed in sequence. After completing a step, the practitioner can revisit an earlier step and earlier tasks as needed. We may find out information later in the RMF that makes us go back to an earlier step or earlier task to update documentation, update the system procedures, or even update assessments or even authorization of the system. So we can always go back to earlier steps and earlier tasks in the RMF if we need to. The RMF, there's Piper again. The RMF can be modified to support agile development. And some of the reasons a system owner may want to divert from a sequential process may be based on the type of system, risk decisions, or after entering the monitoring step. We may need to go back to earlier tasks once we're in the monitoring step. We may determine that, for example, we need to implement additional controls based on new capabilities being applied that are discovered during the monitoring step. There is flexibility in the implementation of the RMF. The expectation is that all steps and tasks will be completed, other than those that have been designated as optional. But organizations have the flexibility in how the steps and tasks are carried out, but they must meet the requirements of the task. So you can do a task in a different manner as long as the intent of the task is still completed. The intent is to implement an efficient and cost-effective manner that promotes the protection of privacy and also the implementation of the correct security controls that will protect the system. This flexibility includes executing tasks in a different order, emphasizing specific tasks, combining tasks, or including the cybersecurity framework in the RMF to enhance security. Risk management is important in implementation of the RMF, of course. The management of risk includes a risk management approach. The risk management approach selected may vary, including being top-down, decentralized, or bottom-up. Regardless of the risk management implementation, it must be consistent across the entire organization. That is, we can't have part of the organization using a top-down risk management approach while another part of the organization use a decentralized or a bottom-up approach to risk management. It has to be consistent across the organization. Resource management. Organizations identify and secure the needed resources to complete the risk management process. Resources made available to appropriate personnel is important to ensure that the management of risk can be conducted effectively and efficiently. Resource allocation includes funding to conduct risk management and assigning qualified personnel to complete the tasks. Each RMF step includes a purpose statement, a defined set of outcomes, and a set of tasks that are carried out to achieve those outcomes. These can be carried out at different levels. That can be organization-wide, system-focused, or mission unit-focused. This is an example of a purpose statement. The purpose of the prepare step, in this case, is to carry out essential activities at the organization, mission and business process, and information system levels of the organization to help prepare the organization to manage its security and privacy risks using the risk management framework. That's the purpose of the prepare step. So each task within each step contains a set of potential inputs needed to execute the task, a set of expected outputs generated from the task execution. It describes the risk management processes, the risk management roles, the risk management responsibilities associated with the tasks, the process of the SDLC, or the system development or software development lifecycle, where the task occurs, a discussion section that defines details about how to conduct that specific task, and a list of references that can be used to find more about the task. So this is an example of what a task would look at. In this case, this is task P3, or prepare 3, risk assessment at the organizational level, and you can see that the task is listed, the identifier P3 is listed, a description is listed, assess organization-wide security and privacy risk, and update the risk assessment results on an ongoing basis. You'll see there's a list of potential inputs, there's a list of expected outputs, the primary responsibility is listed by role, and the supporting roles are listed, of course, by role as well. If we go further into the task, there's a discussion, and this provides detail on what needs to happen to effectively conduct the task. Finally, there's references that are listed where you can find more information about how to conduct the task correctly. So in closing, this topic covered the following items: the steps in the RMF process, the RMF process flow, implementation flexibility, risk management in the RMF, resource management, the outline of a step, the outline of a task, and then the closing. So if any of these tasks don't seem familiar to you, please go back and watch them again.